For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On a crisp September morning in 1997, 29-year-old Kyle Thompson set out into the rugged terrain of Bavaria's Berchtesgaden National Park. The American geology student, known for his meticulous research on Alpine formations, was conducting what should have been a routine geological survey in the remote wilderness. He never returned. Despite an exhaustive search by mountain rescue teams and perfect weather conditions, Kyle seemed to vanish into the ancient peaks he loved to study. For 21 years, his disappearance remained one of the Bavarian Alps' most perplexing mysteries, leaving fellow scientists and family searching for answers among the towering peaks. Then, in 2018, the mountains finally began to yield their secrets when melting alpine ice revealed more than just ancient geological formations. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Kyle Thompson and the dark truth that lay frozen in time beneath the pristine surface of one of Europe's most beautiful mountain ranges. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. In the crisp autumn of 1997, the Bavarian Alps held their usual majestic allure, drawing researchers and adventurers alike to their rugged peaks. Among them was Kyle Thompson, a 29-year-old geology graduate student from the University of Colorado, whose passion for alpine geology had brought him to the remote reaches of Berchtesgaden National Park. Thompson's research focused on glacial formations and their relationship to climate change, a project that had earned him prestigious grants and the attention of leading European geologists. His detailed correspondence with his faculty advisor showed meticulous planning for what should have been a 3-week expedition through some of Bavaria's most challenging terrain. On September 15, 1997, Thompson made his final satellite phone call to the University of Colorado Research Center. His voice was animated as he described discovering unusual crystalline formations that could revolutionize our understanding of alpine geological processes. He reported clear weather and excellent visibility, setting out to document what he called anomalous structural patterns in a remote area of the park. 3 days later, a routine check-in failed to materialize. The silence from Thompson's satellite phone triggered immediate concern among park authorities. Ranger Klaus Hoffman, who had approved Thompson's research permit, initiated standard search protocols, but what he discovered would launch one of Bavaria's most perplexing investigations. Thompson's research equipment lay scattered near a prominent cliff face, approximately 12 kilometers from the nearest marked trail. His high-end camera, specimen collection bags, and notebook were found carefully arranged, suggesting a deliberate setup rather than an accident. Most puzzling was the presence of his satellite phone, still functional, placed atop his folded jacket. The initial mountain rescue response was swift and comprehensive. Teams of experienced alpine rescuers, aided by helicopter support, combed the surrounding valleys and ridges. Weather conditions were optimal: clear skies and moderate temperatures unusual for that time of year provided excellent visibility and search conditions. Yet despite these advantages, no trace of Thompson was found. The disappearance sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Thompson's colleagues at the University of Colorado described him as methodical and safety-conscious, not someone prone to taking unnecessary risks. His research proposal, shared with the German authorities, revealed detailed contingency plans for various emergencies, making his disappearance even more mysterious. As the first 48 hours stretched into a week, the search expanded to include specialized cave rescue teams and mountain guides familiar with the area's most treacherous terrain. The German Alpine Club mobilized volunteers who knew every crevasse and outcropping in the region. Still, the mountain kept its secret. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a visiting researcher from Spain who had met Thompson briefly before his expedition, noted something unusual about his last known location. The area he had been studying wasn't known for the type of crystalline formations he had excitedly described in his final call. This detail, seemingly insignificant at the time, would later prove crucial to understanding the events that led to his disappearance. The impact on the local scientific community was immediate and lasting. The University of Colorado suspended all solo research expeditions in the region, implementing new safety protocols that required researchers to work in pairs. The Berchtesgaden National Park authorities faced difficult questions about their permit system and monitoring procedures for solo researchers. As autumn deepened into winter, hope faded of finding Thompson alive. The savage beauty of the Bavarian Alps, which had so captivated the young geologist, now seemed to mock the efforts to uncover his fate. His disappearance would remain a haunting mystery in the annals of Alpine research, a reminder of the mountains' capacity to guard their secrets, at least for the next 21 years. Inspector Hans Weber arrived at Berchtesgaden National Park's ranger station on a cold September morning, his decades of experience in the Bavarian State Police evident in his methodical approach. The disappearance of Kyle Thompson had moved beyond a simple rescue operation, and Weber's involvement signaled a shift toward a criminal investigation. Weber's first action was to examine Thompson's recovered equipment. The high-end camera contained dozens of detailed photographs of geological formations, the last image taken just hours before his disappearance. More intriguing were the scratch marks on the camera's casing, inconsistent with a simple fall or drop. The specimen collection bags revealed traces of unusual mineral deposits, later identified as rare alpine crystals typically found much deeper in the mountain's protected zones. Interviews with park rangers painted a picture of Thompson as a meticulous researcher who had followed all protocols. Ranger Klaus Hoffmann's testimony proved particularly valuable, describing a chance encounter with Thompson 3 days before his disappearance. Thompson had mentioned seeing unusual activity in restricted areas, but hadn't elaborated further. Weber's timeline reconstruction revealed troubling inconsistencies. Thompson's satellite phone showed a failed connection attempt at 3:47 p.m. on his last day, followed by 2 more attempts within 10 minutes. The phone had then been deliberately powered down, not drained of battery as initially assumed. The careful placement of his equipment suggested staging rather than abandonment. The investigation expanded to include interviews with every registered climber and hiker in the park during that period. A Belgian climbing group reported seeing lights on the mountain face late at night, unusual given the strict regulations against night climbing in the park. Their description of the location matched the area where Thompson's equipment was found. Park entry logs revealed another anomaly. A vehicle registered to local guide Franz Mueller had entered the park multiple times during unusual hours in the weeks preceding Thompson's disappearance. Mueller, known for his extensive knowledge of the park's most remote areas, provided vague explanations about private tour that couldn't be verified. Weber's team discovered that Thompson had been photographing more than just glacial formations. Hidden among his research notes were coordinates of locations that didn't correspond to his stated research areas. These coordinates, when mapped, formed a pattern around some of the park's most restricted zones, areas known for their unique mineral deposits. The local climbing community proved surprisingly reticent. Several experienced guides who regularly collaborated with researchers declined detailed interviews, citing concerns about their guiding permits. This wall of silence frustrated Weber, who sensed that fear, rather than indifference, was keeping people quiet. Forensic analysis of Thompson's notebook revealed pressure impressions from missing pages, suggesting he had documented something significant shortly before his disappearance. The laboratory's attempt to reconstruct these pages produced only fragmentary references to unauthorized excavation and systematic damage. As October approached, the investigation stalled. Despite Weber's thorough approach, hard evidence remained elusive. The mountain's vastness had swallowed not only Thompson, but also any clear signs of what had happened to him. Weber kept the case file on his desk, convinced that Thompson's disappearance was no accident but unable to prove otherwise. The initial investigation's failure to produce concrete results left the academic community demanding answers. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, analyzing Thompson's research focus, suggested that he might have inadvertently stumbled upon something beyond his geological study's scope. Weber noted her theory but couldn't substantiate it with evidence. As winter approached and snow began to blanket the higher elevations, Weber was forced to scale back the active investigation. However, he continued to gather information about the park's guide community, particularly those with access to restricted areas. He maintained a special interest in Mueller's activities, though at the time, there wasn't enough evidence to justify a formal investigation of the guide. The case would remain active but dormant, one of those frustrating mysteries that would haunt Weber's career. Yet his instincts, honed by years of investigation, told him that somewhere in those mountains, hidden under rock and ice, lay the truth about Kyle Thompson's fate. As winter settled over the Bavarian Alps, the search for Kyle Thompson gradually faded from headlines. The pristine slopes of Berchtesgaden National Park returned to their usual rhythms, but beneath the surface, an undercurrent of unease remained. The case that had captured international attention became another cold file in the Bavarian State Police archives, though it never truly went dormant. Inspector Hans Weber maintained his quiet vigilance, reviewing the Thompson file on the 15th of every month. His office wall displayed a detailed map of the search area, marked with red pins indicating the last known locations and key evidence points. Every year, as the snow melted, Weber would return to the site, hoping the changing seasons might reveal something new. At the University of Colorado, Thompson's disappearance cast a long shadow over the geology department's international research programs. The university implemented stringent new safety protocols, requiring all field researchers to work in pairs and carry multiple communication devices. Thompson's empty office remained untouched for months, his unfinished thesis a testament to promising research cut tragically short. His parents, Michael and Sarah Thompson, refused to accept their son's case growing cold. They made annual trips to Bavaria, meeting with local authorities and hiring private investigators. Their visits became a somber ritual, marked by the distribution of updated missing person flyers and appeals to the local community for information. Sarah Thompson learned German, believing it might help break down communication barriers that could be holding back crucial information. The case's dormancy affected the park's operations in subtle but significant ways. Ranger Klaus Hoffman instituted mandatory buddy systems for all research permits, and the park authority installed new emergency beacons throughout the remote areas. Every new ranger was briefed on the Thompson case as part of their training, a cautionary tale about the mountain's dangers, both natural and possibly human. Dr. Elena Rodriguez continued her own informal investigation, collecting geological surveys from the region and comparing them with Thompson's last known research areas. Her analysis suggested patterns of unauthorized activity in the park's restricted zones, but without concrete evidence, her theories remained speculative. She published several papers on the protection of Alpine research sites, indirectly influenced by Thompson's disappearance. The local climbing community's initial reticence evolved into a code of silence. Guides who had once been forthcoming with information became increasingly guarded when Thompson's name was mentioned. Franz Mueller continued his operations in the park, his reputation as an expert guide unmarred by the earlier investigation's interest in his activities. Year after year, the case underwent mandatory reviews. Each time, Weber added new notes, cross-referenced similar cases across the Alps, and updated search parameters based on changing terrain conditions. Modern technology brought New Hope satellite imagery, improved mapping systems, and advanced search algorithms. But the mountains kept their secret. Thompson's disappearance changed the way the international scientific community approached Alpine research. Universities worldwide revised their field research protocols, emphasizing security over our academic freedom. The incident became a case study in geological field safety courses, teaching future researchers about the delicate balance between scientific pursuit and personal safety. As the years passed, the physical evidence slowly deteriorated. Thompson's recovered equipment, stored in the police evidence room, gathered dust. The photographs he had taken, now digitized, were periodically re-examined with new image enhancement technology, but revealed no new clues. His satellite phone, preserved in an evidence bag, remained a silent witness to his final attempts at communication. The case's cold status weighed heavily on Inspector Weber, who had never encountered a disappearance so complete, so devoid of closure. He kept in regular contact with the Thompson family, sharing even the smallest updates, though these became increasingly rare as time passed. The inspector knew that somewhere in the vast expanse of the Bavarian Alps lay answers, preserved perhaps in ice and stone, waiting for the right moment to emerge. For 21 years, the mystery of Kyle Thompson's disappearance remained one of Bavaria's most perplexing cold cases, a reminder of the mountain's capacity to keep secrets. It would take the changing climate itself to finally begin unraveling the truth, as the Alpine ice slowly relinquished its grip on evidence long thought lost to time. The summer of 2018 brought unprecedented warmth to the Bavarian Alps, accelerating the retreat of ancient ice that had persisted for centuries. On July 15, two climate researchers documenting glacial recession in Berchtesgaden National Park made a discovery that would shake the region to its core. Beneath a recently exposed ice sheet, partially hidden by melting snow and rock debris, lay human remains. The body's preservation in the ice had kept intact not only clothing and equipment, but also crucial evidence that would finally illuminate the fate of Kyle Thompson. The discovery site lay less than a kilometer from where Thompson's equipment had been found 21 years earlier, though in 1997, this area had been covered by thick ice and considered inaccessible. Now, as the warming climate altered the Alpine landscape, the mountain began revealing its long-held secrets. Inspector Hans Weber, now nearing retirement, arrived at the scene within hours. The body's location and the preserved clothing matched Thompson's description, but it was the objects found nearby that immediately suggested something more sinister than a climbing accident. Scattered around the remains were professional mining tools, their aged surfaces bearing traces of crystal extraction work. More telling was a waterproof field notebook, its pages still legible after 2 decades in the ice. The medical examiner's preliminary investigation revealed blunt force trauma to the skull, immediately ruling out natural causes. The position and angle of the injury suggested an attack from behind, likely with a climbing tool. The body showed signs of having been deliberately concealed in a crevasse that had, over time, filled with ice and snow. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now a leading expert in geological crimes, was called to examine the site. Her analysis revealed systematic damage to the surrounding rock formations, consistent with illegal mineral extraction. The area showed signs of extensive mining activity, carefully hidden from routine park surveillance. The destruction of these protected geological formations represented not just a criminal act but an irreplaceable loss to science. Ranger Klaus Hoffman, still serving in the park, recognized the significance of the location. It lay within a zone that local guide Franz Mueller had repeatedly claimed as his preferred route for private tour. The same area had been mentioned in Thompson's last satellite phone call, where he had excitedly described unusual crystalline formations. Thompson's preserved field notes proved to be the key that would unlock the entire case. His final entries documented more than geological observations. They included detailed descriptions of fresh excavation marks, unauthorized equipment caches, and precise coordinates of what he termed systematic extraction sites. The young geologist had unknowingly stumbled upon an illegal mining operation that had been active for years. The notebook's final entry, dated the day of his disappearance, revealed his growing suspicion about unauthorized activity in the park's restrict D zones. Thompson had written about his intention to report his findings to park authorities, unaware that this discovery would cost him his life. As forensics teams carefully excavated the site, they uncovered a hidden cache of mining equipment and rare Alpine crystals, some of exceptional quality and significant value. The tools matched the type that had caused Thompson's fatal injury, creating a direct link between his death and the illegal mining operation. The discovery sent shockwaves through the local community. The pristine reputation of Berchtesgaden National Park had been tarnished not just by murder, but by decades of environmental destruction. The careful documentation in Thompson's notebook provided a detailed record of the damage, mapping out a pattern of systematic exploitation of protected geological treasures. For Inspector Weber, the discovery brought both vindication and sadness. His long-held suspicions about foul play had finally been confirmed, but the evidence revealed a tragedy that could have been prevented. The mountain's slow release of its secrets would soon lead investigators to the truth about Kyle Thompson's final days, and to the man responsible for his death. As evidence mounted in the summer of 2018, the Bavarian State Police assembled a specialized cold case task force, bringing together veteran investigators with geological and environmental crime experts. The scope of their investigation expanded far beyond a single murder, revealing a decades-long pattern of systematic destruction within one of Europe's most protected Alpine regions. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's analysis painted a devastating picture. The damage to the geological formations wasn't random theft, but rather a calculated exploitation of the park's most valuable mineral deposits. Her team documented over 30 sites where rare crystals had been expertly extracted, leaving permanent scars in the mountain's ancient face. The precision of the excavations suggested professional mining knowledge, far beyond the capabilities of casual trophy hunters. The financial investigation revealed a complex web of private collectors and black market dealers. High-quality Alpine crystals, particularly those from protected German national parks, commanded extraordinary prices in underground mineral markets. A single perfect specimen could sell for tens of thousands of euros to wealthy collectors who asked no questions about provenance. The task force's review of park guide licenses drew them repeatedly to one name: Franz Müller. His decades of service as a local guide had given him unprecedented access to restricted areas. Müller's deep knowledge of the park's geology, once considered an asset, now appeared suspicious in light of the new evidence. Bank records revealed irregular cash deposits to Müller's accounts spanning 20 years. While not enormous sums individually, they formed a pattern that coincided with visits from known crystal collectors to the region. The deposits were always just small enough to avoid mandatory reporting requirements, suggesting an understanding of financial surveillance thresholds. Surveillance teams began monitoring Müller's movements through the park. Despite his advancing age, the 71-year-old guide maintained an unusually active schedule, often leading private tours to remote areas during off-peak hours. These expeditions followed no logical tourist route, but instead traced a pattern that matched the documented extraction sites. The investigation team discovered that Müller had maintained detailed records of his own, disguised as innocent hiking logs. When decoded, these logs revealed a sophisticated operation for identifying, extracting, and selling rare mineral specimens. The notebooks contained codes for different crystal types and quality grades, along with contact information for buyers carefully hidden within seemingly innocent annotations about weather conditions and trail notes. As investigators dug deeper, they found Mueller's influence extended throughout the local guide community. His position as a respected senior guide had allowed him to discourage questions about his activities. Younger guides who noticed suspicious behavior were quietly pressured to maintain silence, their permits and livelihoods subtly threatened if they spoke out. The breakthrough came when investigators connected Mueller's private tour with specific instances of geological damage. Dr. Rodriguez's team tool marks from recently exposed sites with equipment found in Mueller's possession. The distinctive wear patterns on the tools told a story of repeated use in crystal extraction, directly linking Mueller to the environmental destruction. The evidence painted a picture of a man who had spent decades systematically looting the park's natural treasures. Mueller's extensive knowledge of geology, once praised by park authorities, had been used to identify and exploit the most valuable deposits. His reputation as a dedicated conservationist had served as the perfect cover for environmental crimes that would take generations to heal. The task force's findings suggested that Kyle Thompson's death had been not just about silencing a witness, but about protecting a lucrative criminal enterprise that had operated undetected for years. The young geologist's meticulous research had threatened to expose not just individual acts of theft, but an entire network of environmental exploitation that had been hiding in plain sight within one of Germany's most treasured natural spaces. As the investigation team prepared to confront Mueller with their evidence, they realized they were uncovering more than just the solution to a decades-old murder. They were exposing a betrayal of public trust that had allowed the systematic destruction of irreplaceable natural heritage, all under the guise of legitimate Alpine tourism. The breakthrough in the Thompson case came not through modern forensics or surveillance technology, but through the victim's own words, preserved for 21 years in ice. Kyle Thompson's field notebook, recovered with his remains, became the key that would finally unlock the truth behind his murder and expose decades of environmental crime. Forensic document specialists worked meticulously to preserve and decode Thompson's final entries. The pages revealed not just geological observations, but a detailed catalog of environmental destruction. Thompson had methodically documented fresh excavation marks, unauthorized equipment caches, and precise coordinates of what he termed systematic extraction sites. His scientific training had led him to record everything with exacting detail, unwittingly creating a damning record that would reach across decades. The coordinates in Thompson's notebook mapped perfectly onto areas where Dr. Rodriguez's team had identified crystal extraction damage. His final entry, dated September 15, 1997, showed growing alarm at the scope of what he had discovered. Evidence suggests long-term professional mining operation, he had written. Multiple sites show expert extraction techniques. This isn't random souvenir hunting. Someone with extensive geological knowledge is systematically looting protected formations. When investigators overlaid Thompson's documented locations with Franz Mueller's guided tour records, the pattern became undeniable. Every site where Thompson had noted unauthorized activity corresponded with areas where Mueller had conducted his private tour. The young geologist had unknowingly mapped out Mueller's entire illegal operation. The final pages of Thompson's notebook contained something even more crucial: a planned meeting with park authorities scheduled for September 16, 1997. He had intended to report his findings the day after his last satellite phone call. He never made that meeting. Armed with this evidence, investigators confronted Mueller in his home near the park's entrance. The aging guide's carefully constructed facade began to crack under the weight of Thompson's meticulous documentation. When presented with the matching coordinates and timeline, Mueller's resistance crumbled. His confession emerged slowly at first, then in a torrent of long-suppressed guilt. He described decades of illegal crystal extraction, using his reputation as a respected guide to access restricted areas. The operation had been profitable beyond imagination, with single specimens sometimes selling for tens of thousands of euros to private collectors. Mueller recounted the fatal encounter with Thompson with disturbing clarity. He had discovered the young geologist photographing one of his excavation sites. Thompson, excited by what he thought was an important scientific find, had eagerly shared his plans to document and report the unusual activity he had observed. Mueller realized his entire operation was about to be exposed. The murder itself had been quick and brute. A single blow from behind with a climbing tool, then the careful disposal of the body in a deep crevasse. Mueller had meticulously staged Thompson's equipment to suggest an accident or voluntary abandonment, using his intimate knowledge of search and rescue protocols to misdirect the initial investigation. Mueller's confession exposed not just the murder, but an entire network of environmental crime. He provided details about buyers, other guides involved in the operation, and the full extent of the damage to protected geological formations. The scale of the destruction was staggering. Hundreds of rare crystal specimens had been illegally extracted and sold over 2 decades. The evidence from Thompson's notebook, combined with Mueller's confession, created an airtight case. The young geologist's dedication to scientific documentation had reached across time to expose not only his own murderer, but also one of the largest environmental crimes in the park's history. As Mueller was led away by authorities, investigators realized that Thompson's final geological survey had accomplished far more than he had intended. His meticulous notes had not only solved his own murder, but had also exposed a systemic threat to the natural treasures he had died trying to protect. In death, Kyle Thompson had achieved what he had dedicated his life to: the preservation of Earth's geological heritage. The verdict echoed through the Bavarian courthouse in October 2018, marking the end of one of Germany's longest-running cold cases. Franz Mueller, once revered as Berchtesgaden's most knowledgeable guide, stood motionless as the judge delivered his sentence: 25 years for the murder of Kyle Thompson and the systematic destruction of protected geological sites. The trial had laid bare the full extent of Mueller's crimes. Over 2 decades, his illegal crystal mining operation had caused irreparable damage to dozens of unique Alpine formations. Expert testimony from Dr. Elena Rodriguez revealed that some of the destroyed sites contained geological formations that had taken millions of years to develop. Their loss represented not just a crime against the park, but against scientific heritage itself. The environmental impact assessment that followed Mueller's conviction painted a devastating picture. Beyond the immediate damage from crystal extraction, his activities had destabilized several critical geological structures. The park authority estimated it would take centuries for some formations to naturally regenerate, if they ever could. The financial cost of the stolen specimens exceeded 2 million euros, but the scientific loss was deemed incalculable. In the wake of the conviction, Berchtesgaden National Park underwent a complete security overhaul. New monitoring systems were installed in vulnerable areas, and park rangers received specialized training in detecting geological crimes. The park authority established a dedicated environmental crimes unit, with Ranger Klaus Hoffman appointed as its first director. The University of Colorado, in partnership with German geological institutions, established the Kyle Thompson Memorial Research Grant. The program specifically funded studies in Alpine geological preservation, ensuring that Thompson's tragic death would inspire a new generation of researchers dedicated to protecting natural formations. The case prompted a worldwide review of security protocols in protected geological sites. Park authorities from the Alps to the Andes implemented new measures to prevent similar exploitation. The international geological community adopted what became known as the Thompson Protocols, stringent guidelines for documenting and protecting vulnerable mineral formations. For Inspector Hans Weber, the resolution brought both satisfaction and melancholy. In his final case before retirement, he had finally delivered justice for Kyle Thompson, but the decades of destruction Mueller had wrought could never be undone. Weber ensured that the complete case files were preserved as a training resource for future investigators, a testament to the importance of never abandoning a cold case. The Thompson family found a measure of peace in the knowledge that their son's meticulous work had ultimately exposed a significant environmental crime. They established a foundation promoting geological conservation, turning their personal tragedy into a force for positive change. At their request, Kyle's Rico Verd notebook was donated to the Berchtesgaden Park Museum, where it serves as both memorial and warning. The local guiding community, shaken by Mueller's betrayal, underwent its own transformation. The park instituted rigorous background checks and regular monitoring of guide activities. Many guides voluntarily participated in additional geological preservation training, determined to restore their profession's reputation. Perhaps the most lasting impact emerged in the field of alpine conservation itself. The case highlighted the vulnerability of geological treasures to systematic exploitation. New international agreements were forged, focusing specifically on protecting rare mineral formations. Research stations throughout the Alps were equipped with advanced monitoring systems, creating a network of protection for these ancient natural wonders. As winter returned to Berchtesgaden in 2018, the mountains stood as they had for millennia, their peaks indifferent to the human drama that had unfolded below. Yet within their rocky faces, new protections ensured that the unique crystalline formations would remain undisturbed, preserved for future generations of scientists to study and admire. Kyle Thompson's final geological survey had achieved far more than he could have imagined, transforming a personal tragedy into a lasting legacy of conservation and protection.